Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to everyone. Welcome to Agudath Etz Ahayem Synagogue here in Montgomery, Alabama. I am Rabbi Scott Kramer. I'm so glad to be here. I thank you, David. I'm feeling, compared to last week, it's between night and day. My voice may not be totally there yet, but I am feeling a lot better. So hopefully my voice will be tolerable, a little bit more tolerable than it was last week. And I'm so glad that you're all here joining us. We have 3 in our sanctuary tonight. That's really good. We're so glad, but the 3 of us. And Rosemary and her sister Tricia are here, and we're just so happy I'm happy to see faces that are not in a little 2-inch by 2-inch box on a screen. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom. We are praying out of Siddur Alev Shalem, and we will begin page 5 with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim Kadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We continue with Lechuna Ranana, Psalm 95, page 11. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladunai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena ladunai. Naria, naria, letzor yeshenu, nekadma fana betoda. Naria, naria, letzor yeshenu, Bizmirot Nariyalo. Please join me in the English. Let us go and sing to Adonai. Let us trumpet praise to our protector. Filled with thanks, let us greet God, raising our voice in song. Great is Adonai, a greater sovereign than all other deities. God's hands formed the earth's deep. Mountain crests too are God's work. The sea is God's, for God made it. Dry land was fashioned by God's hands. Come then, let us bow and kneel, let us bend our knees in the presence of Adonai who formed us. For Adonai is our God, and we are God's flock, sheep in God's caring hands. If only you would listen today to God's voice and not become hard-hearted like the people at Merivah, like that time at Massah, in the desert when your ancestors tried me and tested me, though they had seen what I had wrought. For 40 years I was troubled by that generation, and I said, these are a people whose hearts have gone astray. They do not know my way, so in anger I swore they would not enter my rest. Excuse me 1 second. We continue page 13, Psalm 96. Shiru ladonai, shir chadash, shiru ladonai kol haaretz, shiru ladonai baruchu shemo, basru miyom liyom yeshuato, zapru vagoyim kivodo, bechol amim nifliotav, ki gadol Adonai. ומהולל מיוד נוראו אל כה אלוהים לי 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 כי כה אלוהים העמים אלילים והאדוני שמיים עשה הוד והדר לפניו עוז ותפארת במקדשו הבו לאדוני משפחות העמים הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו שאו מנחה ובואו לחצרותיו לילה שתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש חילו מפניו excuse me כל הארץ אמרו והגויים אדוני מלך אבטחום תבל בעלתימות ידין העמים במישרים ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ ירמיהו מלו יעלו שדי וכל אשר בו לילה אז ירננו כל הצייר לפני אדוני כי לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק, ויאמין באמונתו, ילי לי 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 לי, ילי לי לי לי, ילי לי 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 לי, ילי לי 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 לי, ילי לי לי. So I want to apologize again for my coughing through services. Compared to last week, it's between night and day. I actually do feel much better, even though my voice is still not 100%. So you'll have to pardon me if I hack a little bit too much. And we welcome Phil Ensler to his services and his mom. Hello, how are you? Nice to see you. Shabbat Shalom. And we continue page 15 with Psalm 97. Adonai reigns, let the earth be glad, the many distant lands rejoice. Clouds and thick darkness surround the divine. Righteousness and justice secure God's throne. Fire goes before God, consuming besiegers round about. Flashes of lightning illumine the land, the earth watches and trembles, mountains melt like wax at the approach of Adonai, at the approach of the master of all the earth. The heavens tell of God's righteousness, and all the nations see God's glory. Worshippers of idols be shamed for praising false gods. All that is deemed supreme bow before God. Zion hears of it and rejoices. The cities of Judah exult as you, Adonai, pass judgment. You, Adonai, are above all that is earthly, exalted over all that is worshipped as divine. Those who love Adonai hate evil. God protects the lives of the faithful, saving them from the hands of the sinful. Light is sown for the righteous and joy for the upright. Rejoice in Adonai, you righteous people, and thank God as you pronounce the divine holy name. Or Zarula Tzadik Wilishrolev Simcha, Simchu Tzadikim Badunai, Vahodu Lezecher Kadisho. Excuse me, 1 second. We continue page 17 with Psalm 98. Amizmor Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash Ki Niflaot Asa Hoshia lo yemino Uzaro akod shoadia Adonai Yeshuato Le'ena goyim gilat sid kato Zachar chasta ve'emunato Leveit Yisrael Ra'u cholav stei aretz et Yeshuat Eloheinu, Horiu l'Adonai kol haaretz, Pitzchum ve'ranenu v'zameru, Zamru l'Adonai bechinar v'kol zimara, B'chatzot rod v'kol shofar, Horiu lifnei HaMelech Adonai, Yiram hayam u'meloho, Tevel v'yosh ve'eva, Neharot yimcha uchaf, Yachad harim yiranenu, Lifnei Adonai kiva, Lishbot haaretz, Yishbot tevel b'tzedek, Ve'yamim b'meisharim, Yalai lalai 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 lalai, Yalai lalai lalai lalai, Yalai lalai 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 lalai, Yalai lalai 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 lalai, Yalai lalai lalai, Yalai lalai lalai lalai, Yalai lalai lalai lalai, Yalai lalai lalai lalai. We continue page 19, Psalm 99. Adonai reigns, nations tremble. The one enthroned amidst the cherubim makes the world quake. Adonai is great in Zion above all nations. They shall acknowledge your name, saying, Great, awe-inspiring Holy One. A sovereign strength lies in the love of justice, and you forge the paths of truth, judging Jacob righteously and justly. Exalt Adonai, our God. Bow down before God, the Holy One. Moses and Aaron among God's priests, and Samuel among those who called upon the divine name, called to you and you answered them. You spoke to them from amidst the cloud. They kept your covenant and the law you gave them. You answered them, Adonai, our God. You were a forgiving God to them, even as you punished them for their transgressions. Exalt Adonai, our God, and bow down at God's holy mountain, for Adonai, our God, is holy. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lahar kadosho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. We rise, if you are able, page 21, Psalm 29. Mizmor leDavid, Havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, Havu l'Adonai kavod vos, Havu l'Adonai kavod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh. Kol Adonai alamayim, Hela kavod yirim, Adonai amayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai be'adar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishabech Adonai et al Levanon, Vayarkidem kemo egel, Levanon v'Sirion kemo vedrehemim, Kol Adonai chotzev lavotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yecholeo ayalo, Vayechesop yarot, Uvehechalo kulo homer kavod, Adonai lamabul yashav, Yeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz leam o yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. You may be seated. Excuse me. We continue with Lecha Dodi, page 23. Lecha Dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmiyanu elam yuchad, Adonai echad, Ushamaho echad, L'shemu tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nikabila. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mikor aberacha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sov maaseh b'machshvat chila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nekabela, mikdash melech, ir melucha, kumitzi mitocha hafecha, ravlach shevet, bi'emek havacha, v'yachamo alayich emla, lecha dodi lekrat, kala penei Shabbat nekabela, itnari me'afar kumi, liv shevik de tifartecha mi, ayad ben yishai, beit alachmi, Karva ilnam shigei yalla lecha dodi lekrat kalam penei Shabbat nekabela hitoreri kiva ore kumi uri shir daberi kivod Adonai alayich nigla lecha dodi lekrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi lekrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela lo tevoshi velo tikami ma tishtochachi umate mi bach yechasu ani yami venivnata ir altila lecha dodi lekrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela v'hayulim shisa shoho asayich v'erachaku kol mihivalayich yasis alayich Elohayich kimchas chatan al kala lecha dodi lekrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela yaminusmo Tifrotzi v'yeta Adonai ta'itzi ayadish ben parzi v'nismecha v'nagila lecha dodi lekrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela. We rise for the last stanza of Lechadudi, and we face towards the entrance. We face towards the west to greet the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom materet bala gam besimcha uvetzala toch emunei am segula boi chala lecha dodi lekrat kala Penei Shabbat nekabela. You may be seated. Almost there. We continue page 27 with Psalm 92. A psalm, the song of the day of Shabbat. It is good to thank you, Adonai, and to sing to your name most high, to proclaim your love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night. Finger the lute, pluck the harp, let the sound of the lyre rise up. You gladden me with your deeds, Adonai, and I shall sing of your handiwork. How wonderful are your works, Adonai, how subtle your designs. The arrogant do not understand, the fool does not comprehend this. The wicked flourish like grass, and every evildoer blossoms only to be destroyed forever. But you, Adonai, are exalted for all time. Surely your enemies, Adonai, surely your enemies will perish. All who commit evil will be scattered. As a wild bull raises up its horn, you raised my head high, anointed it with fresh oil. As my enemies gather against me, my gaze remains steady, for my ears listen and hear. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in our God's courtyards. In old age they remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming, Adonai is upright, my rock, in whom there is no flaw. Tzadika tamar yifrach ki erez balvanon yiske shetulim Bevet Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvun beseva Deshenim verananim yiyu lehagid ki yashar Adonai tzuri v'lo avlatabo. Page 29, Psalm 93. Adonai is sovereign, robed in splendor, girded in strength. The earth stands firm, not to be dislodged. From earliest time you are enthroned, you are eternal. The rivers rise up, Adonai, the rivers raise up their roar, the rivers raise up their waves. Above the roar of the vast sea and the majestic breakers of the ocean, Adonai stands supreme in the heavens. In your house, beautiful in its holiness, your testimonies endure, Adonai, for all time. Again, thank you for joining me. Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Let me see, we have about 15 connections. We have about 20 or 30 people online. We have a mighty 5 in our sanctuary. I'm still trying to get used to where am I supposed to look, because I have a cam here. I have to watch everything that's going on, and it's a dilemma where my attention is supposed to go in a truly hybrid service. But I'm so glad you're all here. Phil, I'm glad you get to take a moment off from your campaign. I hope everything is going well. I'm sure it's probably really great to have your mom out here to give you support. And Rosemary and Tricia, I'm so glad that you're here, sitting in the same seats that your mom and dad sat. I can only imagine how comforting that is to you and your family. So I know it would be for me. I can remember the seats that I sat in during high holidays with my grandparents in my grandfather in Baltimore. It's Orthodox, so we had to sit separate. But my grandfather, and the one thing I will always remember about him is my cousin and I would sit next to him, and you'd never want to fall asleep, ever, because you know what, back in that generation, he had in his tallis bag. He had ammonia tablets that he would break and up your nose. And I'm going to tell you something, that is not a pleasant experience. You only had to have that happen one time, and you never wanted that again, so we never could fall asleep in services. But I do remember that. We sat in the same seat every year, our whole family. So Shabbat Shalom. I want to apologize for my voice. It's uncontrollable. I'm fine. I got a lot of drugs I'm taking. Thank you so much. I am slowly getting over this. This week compared to last week. Last week I just didn't want to be here. I was actually had a fever, as well as my coughing was even worse. Can you imagine? It was even worse than it is now. And it's been that way most of the week, but I am actually feeling much better. This is just the last remnant. I hope it goes away soon. So I just want to make a couple announcements before, in case I lose any of you between now and the end of services. Tomorrow evening, we are having a very, very special Havdalah. Toria Stark and Miriam Wyman will be joining me on the Bima. We always do Havdalah as a Zoom community around Alabama, so we call it the Alabama Community Virtual Havdalah. We have between 35 and 40 connections, but we're all in our own little cocoon at home. But tomorrow night, Tori and Miriam will be joining me on the Bima. And I'm inviting anyone who's within driving distance of the synagogue. You can join us at 8 p.m. tomorrow. if you would like to see Tori and Miriam live. They're actually in town in a recording studio tomorrow. Tori and Miriam are part of a group called Dahlia Road, and they are going to be putting out an album soon. And actually will be touring with the ISJL around the Southeast. So that's going to, we look forward to that. And in recognition of the holiday of Shavuot, which is in 2 weeks, we will be serving cheesecake tomorrow, if that's an enticement. It's always an enticement for me to have cheesecake on any occasion. So if you'd like to join us, either online or in person. In this week's Torah portion, Bahar, in Leviticus 25:17, it says, "Do not wrong one another, but fear your God, for I, the Lord, am your God. Do not wrong one another." What does it mean to wrong another person? Rashi, the great exegete from France from the 11th century, that great medieval commentator, says that among other things, wrongdoing another person means giving advice which is unfit for him or her. In this case, I understand that giving unfit advice means giving a suggestion that, while appropriate for solving a situation, is beyond the person's ability to do. Giving such advice is somewhat akin to telling a person with no legs that they would get to the store faster if they ran. True and utterly useless. And in what way does advice wrong another person? If someone is prone to anger, sometimes it is really a disservice to them to tell them that they must keep calm at all times. This sets them up for failure, and if they are already in a situation when they need advice, the additional disappointment of not following that advice is the last thing they need. Giving such advice indicates that we are not paying attention to this person in front of us. It shows that we do not know them, understanding their abilities, or even care about them as much as we care about sounding sage and wise. And how do we avoid wronging another person in this way? Simple. Work on one of the most fundamental skills that we are commanded to do. Be a people who listens. Judaism's most basic statement of belief, the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Hear, actually it means listen. The word itself means listen, and it's an imperative. Okay? It's God is imploring us to listen. To be Jewish at its core requires that we listen, and much of our ritual practice includes especially prayer. It is about developing our capacity to listen to one another and the world about us. Often we judge how we treat our fellow human beings by whether we have stolen, fought with, or even gossiped about them. But Rashi's interpretation expands our notion of what it is wrong another. But as we gather this evening, let us ask ourselves two questions. How well have we listened to others? And when we have spoken, have we done so to help or stroke our own egos? And I can't imagine anything more apropos in this terrible political environment that we live, where it doesn't appear that anybody is listening to anybody else. Everybody already knows what their answer is, and you can always tell when somebody's not listening because they're not looking at you when you're talking. They're formulating what the attack is immediately. They're not listening. They're not trying to listen. And the only control we have in this world is ourselves. We have to demonstrate the behavior we want others to observe. We have to listen. Even if we know we don't agree with the other person, the only way to remove hate in our community, in our world, is to get to know each other, even if we don't agree. We have to listen. Phil, I can't imagine what you have to go through on the campaign trail, trying to get people to listen to you, and you have this great ability to listen to others. I know you. I've seen you. And as I see your campaign ad sandwiched in between others that are demonizing you and anyone with a D after their name, I don't know what the solution. I do know what the solution is. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but we have to start by listening, and we have to make sure that others know that we're listening. So take this time and practice asking yourselves these questions. Run them through your mind before you offer advice. This is hard and will be a struggle. But then again, that is why we are called Yisrael, those who struggle with God and persevere. Shabbat Shalom. And I got through that without coughing. How do you like that? And there I go. Okay. We will continue with Ma'ariv, page 39a. Ask everyone to please rise for the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamivorach. Baruch Adonai havarach le'olam va'oed. You may be seated. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher b'nai. U'mahavir yom u'mevi laila mavdil ben yom u'vein laila Adonai tzvaot shemo El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu lam voed baruch atah Adonai Amariv Aravim, page 40. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amchavta Torah mitzvot chukim mishpatim otanu limadeta al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachveinu Uvikumenu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha uvamitzvotecha leolam v'hoed ki hem chayenu v'orech yameinu uvahem nege Yomam v'layla v'yavatcha tasi mimenu la'olamim Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad V'yahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ho'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinanetam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech Uvishachbecha v'kumecha, ukshartam niot al yadecha, והיו לטוטפות פניניך, וכתבתם מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, והיה אם שמוע תשמעו. ויאמר אדוני משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת להם, יעשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורתם, ונתנו על ציצית תקנה בתיל תכלת. והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטור אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. page 43a. ואמונו כזו וקיים עלינו כי. ומלכותו ברצון קיבל עליהם משה ובני ישראל כנשירה בשמחה רבה, ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדור בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך ובניך בקיים לפני משה, זה לי ענו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגלעד מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. page 45. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשמוע. ושמצאתנו בין לחיים ושלמתה ויד עולם, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. We rise, page 46, for Vishamru. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. We remain standing for the silent Amidah, pages 47 through 52. This is our chance to have a private conversation with God. And as our hearts open, we keep in mind all of those in and out of our community that are ill, I can't tell you how many of my own colleagues have let us know via the rabbinical listserv that they are sick, and I know a lot of my congregants are sick. And so we keep in mind during this time, and we hopefully can get to God's ear that we need healing for our entire community. Page 47. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol shalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol shalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים Leolam. We remain standing as the ark is open for Aleinu, page 56. Aleinu nishabeach ladon hakol latedula Leotzer Bereshit Shelo Asanu Kugoye Haratzot Velo Samanu Kamishmachot Adama Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem Vegor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam Va'anachnu Korim Umishtachavim Umodim Lefnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehum Natei Shamayim V'Yosed Haaretz U'Moshe V'Yikaro B'Shamayim Mimal U'Shchinatu Zo B'Gavei Meromim Hu Eloheinu Einod Emet Malkeinu Ever Zulato ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד על כן נקווה לך אדוני אלוהינו, לראות מהר בתפארת עוזך, להבין גלולים מן הארץ. גגדו בתורתך אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad. You may be seated. This week, we will observe yahrzeits for Isaac Franco, Abram Stern, Rachel Perlman, Steve Miller, Amelia Perlman, Adam Wallach, Irvin Landy, Alex Margolis, Nettie Rosen, Pearl Feynman, Ned Franco, Aaron Lewis Goldston, Anna Israel, and Verna Levy Wool. Those observing yahrzeit and those who mourn, please rise and join me, page 58, for the Kaddish Tome, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah, B'yoma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yamechon, v'chayedecho beit Yisrael, ba'agalav izman kariv imahu amen, yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'elam olmel maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei d'kudisha barichu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran b'yoma v'imaru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imaru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imaru amen. You may be seated. So again, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Glad you have spent this time with me. I made it almost all the way through. I just wanted to add one final thought from the words I shared with you. When it comes to listening, sometimes, and I think this is true of a lot of people, we spend more time trying to listen to people that are outside of our families. The people who are closest to us, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes we give the impression, or maybe we actually are not listening the way we should to those that are closest to us. And I want to let Irene know that I am actually listening, even though I don't respond all the time. 2 days ago, May 18th, is actually the anniversary of the day that we met way back in 1979. And I know she posted a Facebook entry that talked about that time that we met, which I'm not going to go into. But even though we don't acknowledge sometimes these seminal events in our lives, sometimes we have to get out of our own way and not only listen, but acknowledge that we're listening and acknowledge that the people close to us really do matter and mean something. Just like all four of you mean a lot to me. And I'm glad you're here, but I think we need, good, even sisters sometimes need to listen to each other, right? And son and mother need to listen too, and I'm sure you guys do very good. So I just wanted to give that last thought and make sure I acknowledge Irene. Excuse me. Be back tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. for the continuation of Shabbat services. And again, I just want to mention tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. We will join for Havdalah, for the Alabama Community Virtual Havdalah. If you are within driving distance of the shore, walking distance, you can join us. Miriam and Toria are in a recording studio tomorrow, and they told me they would like to join me for Havdalah, so we're going to be right here. If you would like to join us, please come. Again, in recognition of the holiday of Shavuot in 2 weeks, traditionally we eat dairy on Shavuot, and so immediately cheesecake. That's what friends of ours in Los Angeles, when I was in rabbinical school, the first day of Shavuot, they had what they called a cheesecake arama, and they had like 13 different types of cheesecake, and they had the whole community over. Yeah. So you don't want to have a diet, be on a diet the day we have cheesecake. So anyway, I will be serving cheesecake tomorrow night. Okay, almost made it. So with that, we'll go ahead and complete our service, page 211. Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'et nasa v'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra azai melech shemo nikra v'yacharei kichlot hakol leva ado yimloch nora V'hu haya, v'hu hoveh, v'hu yiyeh b'tifara, v'hu yiyeh b'tifara, v'hu echad v'yein sheni, l'ham shelo lehachbira, b'li reshit, b'li tachlit, v'lo ha'oz v'hamisra, v'lo ha'oz v'hamisra, Vehu Eli v'chai goali v'tzur chevli b'yetzara vehu nisi umanosli minat kosi b'yom mekra minat kosi b'yom mekra b'yado avkid ruchi b'yet ishan v'yaira v'imaruchi kiviyati Adonai li v'lo ira Adonai li v'lo ira. Shabbat Shalom.